Hello there. It's me, Colton Johnson with Empty Popcorn Bucket Productions. And I've had this YouTube channel for nearly 3 years. And a little hint of my shirt, I have not really done a Star Wars video. Though there hasn't been really any Star Wars movies releasing. But I have had a Star Wars video in the works for as long as I've had my channel. And I've probably almost made this video about 3 times. But over time, I've gotten better at dealing with larger scale franchises. And the Marvel project, which is still ongoing, my MCU rewatch, was a good exercise, if you will. When I say exercise, Star Wars would have been an exercise, and that could have been the Beast to Conquer. But, you know, I don't do things the way everyone else does. And I wanted to conquer the MCU. And now I'm conquering Star Wars. So, Star Wars is something that has a big impact in pop culture. And in my life for many reasons. And I've grown up on Star Wars. And timeliness is another big thing, because the re-release of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, which, as I'm recording this video, I will be seeing that tomorrow, will be a big part of why I did this video. So, this week I will be doing the Star Wars prequels. And I'm gonna probably do what I did with the Marvel series, where I split it up amongst different eras of Star Wars. In Marvel I did phases. And so, stay tuned for that. I'm not going to be as consistent with the releases of those, but I definitely want to try to get those out as soon as possible. Without further ado, I'm going to switch over to my comm system, where you'll hear my voice and talk about the history of the Star Wars prequels. See you in a second. Alright, now that we're on comms, let's take it back to 1977 with the release of George Lucas's Star Wars. A film made on a tight budget with groundbreaking effects and a story that felt both ancient and new. No one ever expected it to change cinema forever, but it did. It redefined the blockbuster, launched an empire of toys and merchandise, and gave birth to a mythos and fandom that would span generations. With Empire Strikes Back in 1980 and Return of the Jedi in 1983, Lucas completed what he called the middle chapter of a much larger story. But then things went quiet. For years, there were whispers, rumors, questions left unanswered. Fans were hungry for more stories, more lore, and they clung to novels, comics, and the occasional video games to fill that void. From the mid-1980s all the way up to the early 90s, this was considered the dark times. There was no new films and no promises of more on the horizon. And we're not talking about the Endor films either. Then came 1997, the special editions, updated versions of the original trilogy with new visual effects and reimagined scenes. They were celebrating the 20th anniversary of Star Wars. But there was always something more. A test, a trial run. George Lucas was returning to the galaxy far, far away. Not just to revisit the past, but to prepare for the future. Because by then, technology had finally caught up to his imagination. Lucas had always dreamed of telling the story of how it all began. The rise of the Republic, the fall of the Jedi, the Clone Wars, the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. These were stories hinted at in the original trilogy, like ghostly legends passed down from an older generation. But now he was ready to bring them to life. And so the Star Wars prequels were born. For the first time, we'd get answers to the questions that had always lingered for over 2 decades. Who was Anakin Skywalker before the mask? What were the Clone Wars? That conflict only spoken in hushed tones. How did the noble Jedi Order fall? How did the Republic become an empire? And how did a young boy full of promise become the Dark Lord of the Sith? These were head-scratching questions, mysteries that sparked years of debate and speculation. And now, we'd finally see them unfold, not as legends, but as history. Now we're going to jump into the first movie on the list, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, released on May 19th, 1999. The year I was born, a matter of fact. After 16 years, George Lucas returned to the director's chair to tell the origin story fans had only dreamed about. With digital filmmaking finally catching up to his vision, Lucas pushed the boundaries of CGI, sound design, and world building. Hype was through the roof. Theaters were packed, toy aisles were wiped clean, and lines were wrapped around theaters just so fans can catch a glimpse of the first ever trailer for the movie. It was more than just a movie. It was the beginning of a new era of Star Wars. Set decades before the original trilogy, The Phantom Menace follows Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi, as they're drawn into a conflict between the peaceful planet of Naboo and the corrupt Trade Federation. Along the way, they discover a mysterious boy named Anakin Skywalker, a slave with an unusual strong connection to the Force. With galactic tension rising, a Sith presence lurking in the shadows, the Republic crumbling from within, the stage is set for the beginning of the end, and the spark of a legend that will echo through the stars. Did this movie live up to the hype? Let's see. I can say this is definitely a Star Wars movie. Though this movie isn't great by any means, there's still a lot to love about it. I can honestly state that I would watch this over Rise of Skywalker any day. This movie has a lot of heart and has some really exciting moments. One of these exciting moments is the pod race sequence. I love watching that every single time. This also has one of the best lightsaber fights in all of Star Wars. The Duel of the Fates score alone makes this movie enjoyable. The next thing I'm about to say might be a little bit controversial, but I don't think Jar Jar is all that bad. Though he is bumbly and annoying, I think he's fun. This movie is very dull compared to some of the others, and hey, it's not my least favorite, so that's good. It's not even the worst of the prequels. So overall, this movie gets a C, or a 3.5 out of 5. Let's continue the prequels with Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. This film hit theaters May 16th, 2002, and by this point, George Lucas was all in on digital filmmaking, making it the first major Hollywood film shot entirely on digital cameras. The technology was evolving fast, and Lucas used it to build bigger worlds, larger battles, and deeper political intrigue. Expectations were pretty high, despite the lukewarm reactions to the previous movie. Fans were eager to see Anakin grow up, to dive deeper into the Republic's unraveling, and of course, to finally see the legendary Clone Wars begin. Set 10 years after The Phantom Menace, the film follows an older Anakin Skywalker, now a Jedi apprentice under Obi-Wan Kenobi, as the galaxy teeters on the edge of war. When Senator Padme Amidala's life is threatened, Anakin is assigned to protect her, and the two begin a forbidden romance. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan investigates a mysterious assassination attempt, uncovering a secret clone army, and the return of the long-lost Jedi Master Count Dooku, now a Sith. As war brews and loyalty shifts, the Republic makes a choice that will change everything forever, and the Clone Wars officially began. This movie has certainly grown on me over time, with its beautiful soundtrack and lovely visuals. It's crazy to think that this one was my favorite as a kid, but as I grew up, it became one of my least favorites. Now, I would say it's my second least favorite. This movie is flawed with terribly written characters and scenes. Angsty Anakin, cheesy moments. It's overall very boring and dull at times. Some of the ridiculousness of this movie gives it that Star Wars charm that makes it hard to hate.
I don't like sand. It's coarse, and rough, and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Clearly, Lucasfilm and Disney know this movie isn't favored. It didn't even get a re-release like the others have. Though with its flaws, this movie is integral to the narrative of the saga. The seeds of Anakin's turn are planted in this movie. We also do get a great lightsaber fight and Yoda gymnastics. That all being said, this movie isn't perfect and gets a spot in C tier at a 3 out of 5. Now, here's the moment you've all been waiting for. Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. This movie was released on May 19th, 2005. And this one holds a very special place in my heart. It was the first ever Star Wars movie I'd ever saw in theaters, and I was just 5 years old, sitting wide in the dark, watching the galaxy fall apart. Now, 20 years later, it's back on the big screen for its anniversary re-release. And I couldn't think of a better time to revisit the prequels and reflect on the saga that shaped so much of my childhood. Back then, this was the end. Lucas had said it himself. The story was complete. We had watched Anakin rise, and now we were watching him fall. Fans walked into theaters knowing where it all had to lead, but still hoping it wouldn't. Set in the final days of the Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith shows us the Republic in chaos. The Jedi spread thin, and the Chancellor Palpatine pulling every string from behind the curtain. Anakin, now a war hero and Jedi Knight, is haunted by visions of Padme's death and manipulated by promise of forbidden power. As trust erodes and loyalties break, Anakin chooses the dark side, and Darth Vader is born. The Jedi are hunted, the Republic becomes an empire, and the last light fades as twin suns rise over Tatooine. Poetic. At the time, it felt like Star Wars was truly over, but, well, we all know how that turned out. For better or for worse. Having just freshly rewatched this is the greatest movie in the Star Wars prequels, and honestly, one of the stronger Star Wars movies. Revisiting this movie in theaters again, when I say again, when I watched this in theaters as a 5-year-old, let's be honest, I ended up falling asleep because it was a midnight premiere. But we definitely got it on DVD and I rewatched the crap out of it. Anyways, when the opportunity arose to experience this again in theaters, I made sure I had my tickets and was going to be seated opening weekend of the re-release. And I was. I haven't felt so giddy watching a movie in a long time. This movie brought me to my childhood. As a kid, this was the movie that shaped my love for Star Wars. And clearly, my parents knew how to raise a Star Wars fan. We had the original trilogy on VHS, and we had tons of Star Wars toys, which I still have to this day. We also had lightsabers that my brothers and I would whack each other with. And this movie inspired my costume choice of that year, which was Darth Vader, obviously. Revenge of the Sith is what I consider a Shakespearean tragedy set in space. This movie is filled with captivating moments and spectacular visual effects that still hold up 20 years later. Yes, some aspects of the movie are janky, but are easier to overlook than the other films. There's so much drama and intrigue that makes this movie feel different compared to the other Star Wars movies. And I'm someone who doesn't love all the political nature of the prequels, but a lot of that mainly is the execution of it. I do feel like it's done a lot better than the first two in this trilogy. I feel like we get to experience a more dynamic version of Anakin Skywalker, and we see his fall to the dark side firsthand, and it's truly heartbreaking. Obi-Wan's story is nonetheless tragic as well. He gets to witness and probably feel at fault for the fall of his apprentice. Padme's role in this movie is also very tragic, yet crucial for the rest of the saga. Yoda also gets his opportunity to do some Yoda gymnastics yet again, and it's phenomenal. And with the moments we see of Yoda, you truly get to see why he is the way he is in Empire Strikes Back. This movie beautifully captures the end of this era of Star Wars, making way for one of the greatest trilogies ever created, and I'm not talking about the sequels. Though this movie's not perfect by any means, it's still an amazing Star Wars movie. It's well crafted in a lot of ways, its plot feels structured, and has some of the greatest yet heart-wrenching moments of Star Wars. This also has, in my opinion, the greatest opening to any Star Wars movie. That space battle is so visually compelling and so much fun. This also has my second favorite lightsaber fight, which is the battle on Mustafar, the Battle of the Heroes. I really don't want to pick out flaws because the good outweighs the bad in this case. Yes, there are some moments that may be frustrating or cheesy, but at least they cut Jar Jar's role to like 3 scenes and 1 line. This is probably one of the most quotable movies in the entire franchise. It was so hard not to quote along while I was watching the movie. Overall, I absolutely love this movie and I will defend this movie till the end, by stating it is one of the definitive movies of my childhood. This movie rightfully gets an A tier in my book with a 4.5 out of 5. The Star Wars prequels have their ups and downs, but you can say it ended on a stellar note. Let's now take out the nifty tier board to rank the Star Wars prequels. As we continue this series and do the other eras of Star Wars and so forth, I will be adding them to the tier list, like my Marvel video. There's only 3 movies in this era, so it's not going to be too hard to rank them. First off, we have Revenge of the Sith at A tier. Fantastic movie, and it deserves this spot. Next up, The Phantom Menace, which this might be controversial. It is in C tier. The movie may be one of the lowest for most, but I think it's okay. Finally, for the prequels, we have Attack of the Clones, also C tier, surprisingly. This movie used to be a lot lower on my list, but you can thank another movie, which I wouldn't say I'm very excited to revisit. I'm going to switch off my comms and turn my video back on so I can end this video properly. So I'll see you in a second. Alright, we're back in my setup. We're all good. I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I have put so many hours into watching the movies. I watched a little bit of history, read some history of the franchise, and I even went to the theaters to watch Revenge of the Sith. The Prequel Trilogy is one of those trilogies that, as time has gone on, it's gotten better with age. Though it's not perfect by any means, I still love it. It has such a charm, and for me, it's some of the definitive Star Wars for my childhood. I have a few videos coming out that I'm looking forward to. Yes, I will continue this series of the Star Wars Rewatch series, but I have a few projects ahead of this that are more important. Next week, I'll have my Thunderbolts review. I'll put the poster right here. And then the following week, I will have my MCU Rewatch Phase 5 Movies video, which, here's the thumbnail that I have already created for that video, which will be coming out in 2 weeks, which I am also very excited for. I just have to see Thunderbolts, put that video together. I also have other video projects that I'm planning. It's almost the summertime, and there's tons of movies that I am looking forward to. And so I'll do my best to do videos, but if you don't see a full video here on my channel, go check it out on my TikTok, links in the bio. Links in the description below. Thanks again. I hope you have a wonderful day, and may the Force be with you. Bye!